Hello, I'm John Furrier with theCUBE, host of theCUBE here in our New York Stock Exchange studio on the East Coast. Of course, we got our Palo Alto studio connecting Wall Street and SiliconANGLE, bringing the two communities together, part of the NYSE and CUBE relationship, wired programming. Of course, we love data and entrepreneurship, and in this world where generative AI is changing the game, there's going to be a new way. The old way will be on the wrong side of history, and all the action is at the infrastructure and data layers as agentic, which is very much hyped up in a legit way, will become soon be powered by these data layers, and the entrepreneurs are doing it. Saket Saurabh is here, co-founder and CEO of Nexla. He's here. He has been in the data space for a very long time, serial entrepreneur. Saket, great to have you on from Silicon Valley in New York. You're part of here. We'll get to why you're in New York, but thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We were talking before we came on camera about the waves and the big data wave. You go back 16 years when theCUBE started. You know, that was the awakening of the big data movement, and all the same kind of conversations about, oh yeah, ATMs are going to replace bank tellers and big data is going to replace this. The same conversations happening in AI. Jobs are going away. Nothing really happened. Actually, more jobs were created. But now more than ever, the data piece has been recognized and validated, hence the Gen AI consumer wave, that the competitive advantage of the future is the value of the data. Okay, great, check. But the real challenge going on that you're involved in, and other entrepreneurs, is that that changes the tech stack. Okay, that changes the way people think about how to architect their systems. NVIDIA stock is all-time high. You're a former NVIDIA innovator. You've been in data. So you have the confluence of large-scale infrastructure and software ramping up. You have cloud computing scale moving into distributed computing, and you have this new data phenomenon layer developing. Some call it the semantic layer, some call it data warehouse in the cloud, but it's different. I want to get into that with you because this is an area where a lot of the smartest people are really working hard, because if you get it right, the spoils and the riches and the value really flourish. So explain what's going on. Did I get it right? Did I miss anything? Like, I mean, because do you see it the same way? And what is the current state of data infrastructure, data engineering? Give us your thoughts and your vision.
Yeah, no, you get this exactly right. I mean, the way I think about this is that we are in a world where as a company or as a solution, you're doing one of two things. You're either in the model or you're in the context. So context is all the information we give to the model so that it can do something useful for us, right? The context, when we think about this, is really the information. What information can we tell the model? What's the knowledge? What's the data? What is happening in different systems? And how can we ask the model to do something for us, right? So bringing together that context turns out to be a lot more complicated. And part of the reason is that enterprises have so many systems built over the years, and stitching it all together is kind of where really the secret sauce lies, because models are pretty smart and sharp, but they also getting to look very similar between each other, right?
Yeah, and there's an arms race too. It seems like it's like an F1 race. Gemini's ahead one day, OpenAI's the next, so it's hard to keep track of what's going on. Now, I was having a conversation with another expert, and he said, well, that's a feature, not a bug. But you can abstract away the application layer and developer side. You can let that behavior happen, and then you abstract out the infrastructure side and deal with that context flywheel. Whatever model, and then you got model routing, all these new things pop up. Is that, do you see it the same way? How should someone think about dealing with it? Because you could spend all your time figuring out one model and then go, wow, wait a minute, it's obsolete. Or then they leapfrog. So there's a leapfrog game on the model side, which is confusing people. How do you clear that air up there?
Yeah, I would certainly say that that leapfrogging will continue to happen. But we're also seeing that the capabilities of models are stabilizing. So there are two things that will happen from that model perspective. One is, yes, you don't want to build your entire solution sort of stuck to one particular model. Be able to take advantage. So for example, if it becomes a coding application, well, it turns out maybe Claude is doing it better than OpenAI or whatever, like however this evolves, right? So you want to be that. The other part that is going to happen is you will take specific problems you're solving and try to fine-tune some of these models. There's a lot of value in that, not in general purpose. And then I think that there are some model innovations that will come that will help us solve enterprise problems better, okay? Now, the way I think about this is that we're all ultimately about the application. What problem are we really solving? And we've been through 3 waves of innovation. First wave was the data center, then the cloud warehouse, and now we're in the model sort of era, right? It's all about how does that model really serve our purpose, right? And I'm happy to dig more into that.
Dave Vellante always talks about this because when I first met him 16 years ago, we started working on theCUBE together, I wrote a blog post in 2007.
Yeah.
It was called Data is the New Development Kit. Now, that's kind of dating the 2007, because remember back in the old days you had developer kits?
Yeah,
But the thesis was data is the value for like software engineering. Go full circle now, it's like data is feeding in the engineering side of developers. Now, some application developers aren't data scientists, they're not wrangling data.
Yeah.
They just want to code, or use now coding assistants. So the data engineering layer came out of cloud, and the conversations over the past, say, 8 years, this idea that there's like an SRE for data coming, and that's been kind of validated. So you're kind of playing in this data engineering layer, and you kind of use the term context engineering.
Context engineering.
I want you to explain this, because I think this is probably one of the most robust and lucrative areas to play.
Yeah.
Because this is an architectural system design thinking, engineering, innovation idea.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, I just built a data engineering layer. It's not that easy. So explain this layer, and we've seen layers like TCP/IP change the world. We got Kubernetes doing great. So I think that this data layer will be the most important area, and which is why everyone's fighting for it. Databricks, give me the data lake data. So this is like a contested kind of idea. What is it about, and can anyone own it, or is it open source? Like, what's your thoughts on this? Because companies have to get this right. This is a table stakes design.
Yeah. No, companies absolutely have to get this right, because that's how you unlock the real value of AI. We won't be able to get that without doing this right. And the TCP/IP analogy is also great. So let me sort of double click on why this is happening in the first place. See, the primary use of data before used to be analytics. I want to make a business decision, I need a dashboard, I'm asking this question, and somebody goes and builds that together, and they pull that data into a dashboard, and then as an exec, you're making the decision. Now that has flipped because of AI. In AI, what you can do is you can tell AI, here's all my data, this is the meaning of the data, here's my question, now you can figure out what to apply and what is relevant and all of that stuff. So the model changes from, let's curate only some data and bring it to a dashboard, versus let's make all possible data and information available to the AI and let the AI sort of make some decisions. So that changes an equation where data engineering is not about some very specific data being brought together into a warehouse and visualizing that. It's about connecting to everything, right? If you can connect to everything and you can tell the AI, here's my question, here's my problem, by the way, that's one part. The second layer beneath that is the semantic layer, which is like, okay, what does it even mean? What does this inventory mean? What does this price mean? And all that stuff. So you give the meaning, that's a semantic layer. And then you have the connection layer, which is go fetch that data, or go take that action in this inventory system or in this sales tool. So these sort of three layers have to come together to make it happen, and that's where the data engineering and the context engineering comes into play. And so context becomes a lot about the data, the knowledge, which by the way is in documents. And AI models are great at doing that.
A connection comment is relevant.
Yeah.
You got to connect to it.
You got to connect to it. That is, so in TCP/IP, if you remember, right, you have a physical layer, the connection, the Ethernet, the Wi-Fi and all that stuff, and then you have the packet, and then you have the network and all that stuff, right? In this world, it is the connector that actually goes into the system that can read and write to it. You cannot operate without that. That's your gateway. Then what does that, what did you read? What does that even mean? Well, there's a data model, there's a semantic layer. And then, well, how do we bring it to the right place? So that's the delivery of the data to the model, or to another system, or to an application. So it's bidirectional, because you'll take data in, and you'll use that data, and you'll push actions out of that. And I would say that all sort of stitches into context engineering, and the big change that has also happened, in addition to the application which holds data, the database that holds the data, events that are coming, there are documents. The documents that also capture knowledge. So stitching all of that together, and then saying, well, I have memory, I remember what you asked me last time, so let me use that. All of that together makes that context.
That's great, great description, I love that. It's going to be a great highlight on my highlight reel for the week. I want to go one step further, because you brought up a good point. I love the connection, and then the meaning. Those are two things, they work together. If you look at the current market right now, in enterprise, and even throw the hyperscalers in there, and the neo clouds, there's an IT mindset, the old school mindset, where stack some servers, load Linux on them, get a database, have a query, goes into it. I'm oversimplifying, but that's kind of static world, but it got connected. Now you're in a generative world, it's like
Yeah.
runtime.
Oh yeah.
So a whole nother stack is changing. I remember 16 years ago during the big data, early days of Hadoop, someone from Bank of America came on, they were working on fraud detection, they were doing machine learning, they were hitting that up early. They use it as oil refineries. Data is like an oil refinery. You've got to get the oil out of the refineries.
Yeah.
So today, Jensen Huang talks about AI factories.
Yeah.
So essentially, that's where the market's going. There's going to be large factories and small factories processing data. So you're seeing the enterprises kind of adopt this. I mean, in fact, NVIDIA loves the data factories. But last year at GTC, you'll appreciate this being a former innovator at NVIDIA, Jensen Huang said KV Cache is the operating system for AI factories. No one got that. I'm like, oh my God, he just, like, and then I was the only analyst that was drilling on that because that's networking.
Yeah.
That's not like Linux. And his meaning was they're connecting GPUs, and you got NVLink and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
But the point is that those connections make the hardware go faster. That is going to be fueled by data. So
Yeah.
I think this connects into the modern infrastructure.
Correct.
So the question for you is, what is that, first of all, do you agree that this whole dynamics happening in AI factories? And then two, what data architecture and what software runs on it? So if KV Cache is connecting the chips on the NVIDIA side and there's other chips out there that are more open source, what's the data software look like?
Yeah.
Can you share your vision on this? Because this is where that next layer sits on top of or close to the
Yeah.
chips
Yeah.
in these new AI factories.
Yeah, I mean, having worked for Jensen, he's a very forward thinker, relentless innovator, and I would say that he's exactly right in how companies are basically becoming AI factories. The role of the data here is very much similar to, I would say, networking, where think about all of these different systems and applications where data exists, or information exists.
Yeah.
It has to be stitched together. Now, it's kind of like connectivity. The layer that is sort of emerging in many companies is the concept of a data product, which is something that encapsulates the
Data product.
A data product.
Yeah.
It encapsulates the understanding of data. So what you want is that your AI doesn't have to go to 100 different systems and figure out how to connect that. That is never scales. So you have a layer that knows how to connect, get the meaning, and package up these nicely created data products. And these are all in our
latency we're talking about here, really low latency. It has to be fast.
very low latency. It has to be, because you have some user on the other end sort of waiting for an answer or an action to happen, right? So the concept of data products, which until a lot of industry thinks of it as like a store of data, actually is like a virtual entity in our mind that gives a common layer. So a common layer that understands the data, builds that up, and stitches it together in real time, feeds that to the model. I think that's kind of where some of the industry direction is going into, where you combine the data with the meaning of data. And the main thing here is to remember that the data consumption has to become easier. Data consumption from systems has been hard. It has taken a lot of effort for people to stitch it together, and that doesn't scale.
I want to get your thoughts on the enterprise AI, because I think this
Yeah.
you're hitting, I'm glad we went there, because this goes to the next level, which is, okay, I want to create value with my AI factories and whatever software estate I have, and now I have applications coming on top of it that are going to drive either revenue value or cost reduction. Perfect storm for all companies, there's no doubt about it. Okay. These enterprises have brittle systems. Now, the good thing is abstraction is a good thing. The abstraction layers are always opportunities, and AI will certainly help when you have tons of GPUs and XPUs helping there. I'll say, we're looking good. The question is, what does an enterprise need to do? What are you seeing? What are some of the conversations? Because this is probably the #1 work area when I talk to large enterprises or just general enterprises, like, I got to get my data right. Now, they do the RAG easy, search is easy, that's the first, oh wow, it works, search.
Yeah.
But that's not the real answer. The real answer is, how do I get the best data at the right time, fastest as possible for any query, because it's generative, it's not like static.
Yeah.
They have the workflows, they got the data, now they got to answer the question that could be different every single time.
Yeah.
What are your conversations like with the enterprise? Because this is there progress there? Are we still stalled? How would you peg the momentum? I mean, the excitement's high.
Yeah. See, excitement is high. When I talk to large enterprises, I tell them that, there's a lot of conversation on model and what models can do, and I'm like, let's shift that conversation, okay? Let's shift that conversation to what are you going to bring to that model. You as a company have some valuable data, right? That's your differentiation. But your data by itself doesn't give that full context. So you got to bring a lot of pieces together to make that happen, and stitching those pieces is not easy. Abstraction is a very key construct. Even at NVIDIA, I don't know if you know, but NVIDIA has always had more software engineers than hardware. Abstraction has what allowed them to create these chips and continuously innovate. So abstraction in the data world will be about sort of all this, what we call as variety. There's a lot of variety of system structures. Abstraction gives that common layer. And my conversation with a lot of the leaders there is, how do we make sure that the understanding of data is being built, so that semantic layer. That is largely based on probing and understanding and doing that automatically. AI plays a big role. And then how do we have that live connectivity to bring that information out, right? I would say that there's still a long ways to go. The systems are indeed, brittle. The way to solve that is through automation. So one thing I would say, for example, what we do, generating connectors to all these systems that are there within the enterprise, whether they bought a system, whether they built it in-house, AI is actually generating those connectors. We are using AI to then take that understanding, that metadata, and build that into something that AI can understand. Like, hey, I'm going to throw data at you. This is what it means. And then applying and saying there's governance, like what can be used for the given user who's accessing. So those layers have to still be built in a scalable way.
Let's talk about what you guys are working on, because I think this is why I love AI right now, because it's not so much just a consumer thing. What you just pointed out is how you're going to take the thousands of man-years of coding and intelligence and identify automation using AI to make the abstraction better. Now the hardware will give you speeds and feeds. You're getting at more of a software innovation. Is that right? Are you guys applying that AI to go faster, to make those efficiencies? Because at any given time, the agents can spin up to do the work that you might have to go and do a PRD on. Oh, we got a new use case. That would be a software project. Is that happening?
That is happening. This software layer that we have created also takes advantage of hardware. We actually go use NVIDIA technology like NIMS, for example, because we can run these small models that can do certain operations really effectively. We're looking at parsing a document with images and visuals. You can use GPU accelerated mechanics for that. Video content, something that you are building a lot of, is now accessible by AI to do search summarization things. Again, when you are connecting to data, I think about, hey, there must be useful information in a video that we can take, and in a document, and in a database, or in a CRM, or whatever, right? So stitching that together, so we do take advantage, by the way, bring that hardware software world together, so that we can take advantage of all the hardware acceleration and the data that's coming from all the
I wish we had more time,
right?
because I'd love to expand how because I think the NIMS and what NVIDIA is doing, what you just mentioned, changes what an ecosystem looks like. The old school ecosystem was, hey, get a partner, do some joint selling. Now there's technology embedded in partnerships. MCP, for example, was one of the best organic innovations this year that I saw. Still evolving in a great way, but still, that shows that that's going to usher in the agents. That came out of the community. That means if we're going to work together as a partner in an ecosystem, there's now a technical, it's not just build an API, which is still great, but like now you've got context, you've got delegation, trust, with data crossing boundaries. What's your vision on that? What's quick take on how MCP and how the relationships of the old ecosystems, NVIDIA is building out an ecosystem. It's a classic ecosystem that we cover, but they're doing it differently. And that's an example. You don't need to comment on NVIDIA, but just in general, cloud providers are doing the same thing. Because the enterprise just want to get the best data.
So the two challenges that as an industry we need to solve through. MCP is a great start, but I think we'll see some iterations of that. It has its own limitations as well, but that's great. That's a good start. The two problems that we'll end up having to solve. One is that as we do these agentic flows, and you do one action followed by another, you can complicate and multiply the errors. So you may end up with outcomes that are not very reliable because you used multiple chains. How to make that, manage that better is where giving the right context and the prompt. If you use ChatGPT and put the prompt, that the better a prompt that you put, the better outcome you get. So all of those pieces become extremely important, so that we can do this series of actions and make that possible to get done with right reliability. So it could be, managing a purchase order, paying an invoice. There's a lot of enterprise actions that happen that can be automated. The second part, I think, that I believe is that there has to be model level innovation as well. So just think of the biggest AI application today, self-driving cars, the Waymos that are going around, at least in the Bay Area, right? It takes a human being maybe 2 weeks to learn how to drive a car. It took us 10, 15 years to train AI how to drive a car.
Get their permit.
So, yeah.
They get their permit at 15.
And the reason is that the AI has to work in a human world, in
Yeah.
these streets and this chaos, right? So the same thing in the enterprise. Remember, the enterprise, a big enterprise, is a lot of chaos. The AI has to work in that chaos. And if it takes us that much time to train an AI to drive a car, I will tell you, running a purchase order in a big company is extremely complicated. You hire a graduate and it takes them 3 to 6 months to learn how to do that right and not make mistakes, right? So there will be evolution of the techniques and methodologies. Ultimately, the knowledge of how a job is to be done and how it's to be verified has to be brought to the AI, right? So we'll see evolution in model side and we'll see evolution in the data side.
Awesome. I want to ask you about, people love the commentary, they're calling in. I want to ask you about your company. Give a quick overview of what you guys are working on, some of the momentum, status. Put a plug in.
So Nexla started with the vision that everybody will become a user of data and data will be used in different places. So we created the connectivity layer so that we can connect to different systems, understand the data, bring it together in a common way, and feed to different users. We didn't think of generative AI as the potential user, but it has become the biggest user. And some of the problems that we have solved is for brands or companies that we know, like a DoorDash. Get data from all the different merchants, have it in a common structure so that you and I can say what is available nearby and get it delivered. And so us as a company have been solving a problem that, again, preparation meets opportunity. Is exactly the right problem that matters for the AI world, which is connect to all that we're IT, understand it. We were the first company to be considered a cool vendor for using the understanding of data to stitch it together. And today, the scale that you're thinking about in terms of stitching information, there's no way to do it other than use AI back to make data AI ready. And we are kind of bringing that AI into making data AI ready.
All right, Saket, thank you for coming in today. Appreciate the commentary. Thanks for participating in the Mixture of Experts series. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I'm John Furrier at theCUBE. We are here at the NYSE. Thanks for watching.